She thought it was just a homeless man staggering down her alley. His clothes were torn, his skin was cracked like desert ground, his lips were bleeding, and his hands were pressed together, shaking violently and reaching toward her like she was the last drop of hope left in the entire world. But when he collapsed, face first into the dust and whispered her name, a name she had never told anyone, a name her dead mother used to call her in secret, she frozen. Then he lifted his head, and for one single terrifying second, his eyes were not human. They were gold, they were ancient, they were burning with a light that did not belong to this world. She stumbled backward, knocking over water bucket. The water hit the cracked earth, and the earth absorbed it instantly, completely like it had never existed. He whispered three words that changed everything. Please save me. What would you do if a dying dragon in human form arrived on your doorstep begging for water, and the entire universe was watching to see if you would help? So, this is Dad's story. So, without wasting a single second, let's jump into the story. The summer was not like any other. Everyone in Millbrook, Colorado, a small town, knew it. Every evening, the old farmers would sit on their porches and talk about it. They would shake their heads and look up at the sky, which has forgotten how to make clouds. The kids stopped playing outside afternoon because the heat was so bad that it felt like they were walking through a wall of fire. The grass in every yard had turned brown like old pepper. Since the start of June, the creek behind the elementary school, where kids used to catch frogs every spring, had been completely dry. But no one said anything about the river because talking about the river meant admitting that something was really, really wrong. For more than 200 years, the Millbrook River had been flowing through that valley. Even in the middle of summer, it was wide, deep, and cold. People in the area said it never dried up, not even during the worst droughts on record. Kids swam in it as they grew up. Every Sunday morning, old couples would walk along its bank. It was the heart of whole town. It was gone now. Not low, not shallow, just gone. The riverbed looked like a broken mirror with cracks and splits. The mud at the bottom had hardened into grey clay plates that curled up at the edges like dead leaves. Researchers from the state university had come to get samples. They left looking pale and confused with no answers. Every morning, 14-year-old Maya Collins woke up to that world. Maya and her grandmother, Ruth, lived in a small blue house on the eastern edge of town, where the road turned towards mountain. When she was 7, her parents died in a car crash. She did not remember her father's face very well, but she remembered everything about her mother, the smell of her hairs, the sound of her laugh, and most importantly, the thing her mother always said before bed every night: Maya, kindness is the bravest thing a person can do. Maya had always thought that it was the one thing she could count on when everything else seemed shaky. Maya woke up at 5:30 on the morning of July 14th because she could not sleep. Even at night, the heat would not stop. She put on her old grey t-shirt, jean and worn out sneakers, grabbed her backpack out of habit and walked out into the dark before dawn. When she could not sleep, she always walked to the riverbed. She knew it was strange. A lot of people stayed away from it because it made them sad, but Maya thought there was something real about it: the emptiness, the quiet, and the way cracked ground looked like a map of something she could not read yet. She climbed down the bank and walked slowly along the dry riverbed, where her sneakers made a crunching sound on the hard clay. That was when she saw him. He was lying on his stomach at the bottom of the riverbed, where the water used to be the coldest. His body was completely still. Maya thought he was dead for one terrible second. She stopped moving. She looked at him. He was very tall. Even when he was lying down, his clothes were odd. Not strange, not dirty, or homeless. It's more like strange from long ago. His coat was dark, almost black, but the edges sparkled like oil on water. She could see his hands and neck, and his skin was covered in a fine pattern of scales that were so small and subtle that at first she thought it was just a skin problem. He was shaking. His whole body shook every few seconds with a deep internal vibration like a machine that was losing power. Maya should have run away. Her mind was telling her to turn around, climb back up the hill, go home, and call someone. It was just before dawn, and she was 14-year-old and all alone. But she didn't run away. She walked upon to him and said, "Hey." In the dry riverbed's huge silence, her voice sounded very small. "Hey, are you alright?" He didn't say anything. She crouched down a few feet away from him and said it again, louder. "Sir, are you alright? Do you need help?" He turned his head toward her slowly, and with the pain, his face looked like a man's. Jaw that is strong, cheekbones that are sharp, skin that looked like dark copper. But it was broken, like the riverbed was broken, like something deep inside him was dying out and breaking apart. There were dozens of small cracks in his lips that were making them bleed. His hair was dark and full of dust. He opened his mouth. It was a quiet human voice that came out. It was more profound. In layers, he said, "Water." Like three voices speaking at slightly different frequencies. A chord on a piano is made up of several notes pressed at the same time. "I need the water." In her backpack, Maya had a water bottle that was half full. She took into out right away. "Here," she said, moving closer and holding it out. He reached for it with his hand, his fingers curled around the bottle. At that point, Maya saw his eyes. For just 1 second, the brown irises was trying to keep up fell apart. There was something else underneath, gold that is melted. It was old and huge, and it burned with a cold, far off light, like the color of stars seen from a billion miles away. It was gone after that. His eyes were brown once more, back to being human, but his hands was so tight gripping her water bottle that plastic was cracking. "Not this water," he whispered in desperate voice. "The water won't work. It has been ruined. Bear, I need the water from old fountain, the spring in the mountains, the one that has not been touched yet." Maya looked at him. "How did you find out about that spring?" He looked at her with eyes that looked almost human. "Because I know everything there is to know about the water on this planet. Every river, because the lake that is underground, every drop of rain that has ever fallen." He stopped for a moment because it was hard for him to breathe. "Or I did before." Maya sat back on her heels and looked at him. A small puddle behind them, the last bit of water in the crack of the riverbed near the embankment, silently and completely dried up in about 30 seconds. Maya saw it go away like a trick. The heat wave was getting worse. People were taking the water, and there was something about this shaking, broken, gold eyed stranger that made her think he knew exactly why. "What's your name?" she asked. He shut his eyes. "In your language, the closest translation would be Cairo, Cairo." She said again, "Hi, I am Maya." He opened his eyes once more. "I know," he said in a low voice. "Your mother gave you name that means water in an old language that is not used anymore. She picked it because she said you were born during a rainstorm that ended a drought." He came to a stop. "I'm sorry. I should not have said that. I'm losing my ability to filter. My mind is breaking up." Maya felt every hair on her arms stand up. She sat in the dry river bed with this stranger who was impossible to understand for a long time, listening to the town waking up in the distance. Then she made a choice. She said, "The mountain spring. I know where it is. My grandma taught me when I was young." She got up. "Are you able to walk?" Caro looked at her like she was the most amazing thing he had ever seen in all his thousands of years. "Yes," he said, "with your help." She stretched out her hand. He took it, and somewhere high above the atmosphere, in a part of space that human telescope had not found yet, something is big, cold, and hungry turned its attention to a small blue and green planet, sensing that its plan was being messed up. The first challenge was to get Caro out of riverbed and onto the river without anyone seeing them. Maya was careful. She knew the morning routines of her neighbors by heart, just like most kids know their timetables. At 5:50, Mr. Patterson took his dog for a walk. At 6:15, the Garcias went for work, and at 6:30, the school maintenance truck drove down River Road to check on the sports field sprinklers, which were out of water. She got the timing just right now. By 6:10, she had Caro moving slowly along the edge of town, where the trees were towards the mountain trail. He was leaning on her shoulder, and she was leaning back hard because he was heavy in a way that did not match his tall, thin appearance. Not heavy with fat, heavy with density. It was as if he was made of something denser and stronger than regular human flesh. You need to tell me what's going on, Maya said, through clenched teeth as they walked. Everything I need to know why I am taking such a big risk right now. For a moment, Gary was quiet. He had trouble breathing. He would stop every few steps, press one hand against the nearest tree trunk, and take in something from it, like a small drop of moisture from the bark before moving on. Have you ever heard of a drought wraith? He asked. No. Most civilizations in the galaxy run into them at some point. They are beings from other dimensions, old. They do not have bodies like you think of bodies. They exist as processes, systems. Consumption is what makes them who they are. He stopped for a moment to catch his breath. They eat water, not just drink it, eat it at the molecular level. They take it out of ecosystem, the air and living things. They have drained whole planets in the ocean, made living worlds into dust. Maya kept walking, looking ahead at the trail. The patch of the mountain began just past the old mill, which was crumbling stone building that had not been used in 40 years. The trail got steeper and steeper as it went through the pine forest. And one of these things is here, she asked. On Earth, Cario said. It got here about 3 weeks ago. It set up shop in an upper atmosphere right above this area. It is still small and it is slow getting stronger so that it can eat all of the water on Earth at once. He looked at her from the side. It will take about 11 days for it to drain every ocean on your planet once. It is at full strength. Maya stopped moving. She turned to look at him. 11 days? Yes, that is the projection. And why are you here? She asked. Who are you exactly? Carrier stood up a little straighter, even though he was weak, cracked, and shaking. There was something about the way he held himself that was very, very old. Not old like a grandpa, like a mountain. It is old like the sky. It is old. He said, I am what your old cultures called a water dragon. My kind were some of the first things made in the galaxy. In a way, we were engineers. We made the water cycles of new planet. We put seeds in clouds, made riverbeds, and called down rain from places that did not have any. He looked down at the valley below them, which was dry and hazy. There used to be thousands of us. I am now the last one. What happened to other people? He said, the drought wraiths, they killed my kind first because we were their natural enemies. For 3,000 years, people have been looking for me. He stopped. I came to the earth because I felt the wraith coming. I came to put an end to it, but I knew it was coming and hit me first, going after my water supplies before I could get ready. I'm crashed. I was on fire. Then I walked until I could not walk anymore, and I fell into your empty riverbed. You found me. Maya looked at him for a long time. Okay, she said. She turned around and kept walking on a trail. Then we need to hurry. The patch quickly got steeper. The pine trees closed in on them, and the shade was a small relief from the heat. Maya saw things that scared her even more. Though the pine needles were brown and falling in piles along the trail. The little creek that usually ran next to the path was gone. Instead, there were just wet looking stones with no water between them. The moss on the rocks was grey and small too. The world was getting drier. Not slowly, quickly. Maya heard something about 40 minutes into the climb. It was a sound she could not place right away alone. rhythmic pulsing that was almost too low for people to hear. She felt it more in her chest than heard it with her ears, like a mechanical heartbeat. It's so cold, not right. Caro grabbed her arm and pulled her off the trail quickly, pushing them both behind a big rock. Don't move, he whispered. What is? Heat trackers, he said. The wraith's extra parts. It sent them out to find and destroy any remaining source of moisture before they can be used against it. He moved closer to the rock. They can tell how hot or cold a body is and how much water it has. They are attracted to living things. Maya pressed her body against the rock and did not move at all. She could see the trail through a small space between the rock and the pine tree. It was not easy to see what was moving along it. The scariest part was that it was more like a distortion, like the air bending and moving with bad intent, like the heat shimmered over hot asphalt. It moved slowly with a cold mechanical heartbeat and stopped just a few feet from where they were hiding. Maya held her breath until it hurt her lungs. The distortion kept going, then another one came, then a third. They waited until the pulsing stopped. How many of those are there? Maya asked in a whisper. Enough, Caro said. We cannot stop on the trial. Before they finish their circuit and come back, we need to get to the spring. She saw something in his cracked, Cooper face that she had not expected to see there. Fear. Not for him. She somehow knew that right away. He was worried about her. He said softly, You don't have to keep going. I can try to get there by myself. I will take more time. I might not be able to do it, but you are young and human. And this is not your fight. Maya stared at him. My mom used to say that being kind is the bravest thing a person can do. She said, I always thought that meant being kind to others, but it could also mean this. She pushed off the rock and stepped back onto the path. Come on, it is still 30 minutes until spring. Carol looked at her for a moment with those old, almost human eyes. After that, he followed.